Hey y'all, here at OS Reviews. Today we're taking a quick look at the Oaxis myFirst Fone R1. As the name implies, this is a cell phone for kids in the form of a watch. So it supports a SIM card and kids are able to then make calls, primarily to parents and family members. It has GPS, so location tracking is also built on in, going for around $140. Now this isn't the first kid-centric phone that we've reviewed. There's been models from ZTE and Sprint, as well as even walkie-talkie devices from Relay. So these are largely all catering towards the same crowd, but nice to see it now in a form that is a lot smaller. The smartwatch/phone itself is technically powered by Android, and otherwise also has basic functionality including a camera, step counting. There's also a music player built on in. Another application here could be giving it to the elderly for similar tracking purposes. This supports a 4G LTE GSM SIM card, so you can also choose, for instance, T-Mobile here in the US, although it comes with a free eSIM with 3 months of service when you're first buying it, and otherwise it has a 1.3-inch display. The resolution of the camera there is 2 megapixels, and it's technically, again, Android 4.4, but that doesn't really matter since it's on such a small smartwatch interface. Technically here with 1 gig of RAM, 8 gigs of storage, and it is rated to be IPX8, although not recommended for swimming, for instance. There's an emergency SOS mode for contacting parents and the authorities, which will also trigger a 30-second live recording, which is a pretty good safety function, as well as a class mode that will disable any distractions or data from coming in. There is also a heart rate monitor on here, by the way. And aside from the smartwatch itself, a few extra goodies here include just a charging cable and uses these pogo contacts magnetically to attach onto the back of the watch, taking about an hour and a half to fully juice up, and it will last for roughly a day to a day and a half's usage before you have to top it up again. So not the longest battery. It's comparable to something like an Apple Watch because there is cellular and Wi-Fi built on in. So I do wish maybe it would be a little bit longer, although again, that's what you can expect on most Android-powered watches and Apple Watch as well. There's also a few stickers that you get for further decorating the device. A closer look at design, we have that aforementioned 1.3-inch IPS LCD display, along with the built-in camera here, which is fixed. Otherwise, we have just a power key on the edge that you can also tap on once to turn the screen on and off, as well as a back key that you can press on down below there. There's also that emergency SOS button on the right-hand edge. Here it is next to the Emu watch phone as a comparison. These are both advertised as kids-friendly smartwatches, where having a slightly more compact frame, I would argue, is more important, since kids will have smaller wrists, but this should be comfortable and lightweight enough for that intended demographic. We have that SIM card slot located on the left-hand edge. Otherwise, the back here just houses the optical heart rate sensor along with the charging contacts, which are magnetic, and that is pretty much it. We have a couple of microphones, as well as a loudspeaker there when you are making calls. Overall, the watch straps can also be removed using the 2 switches, and you can swap this out for other colors. A closer look here at the UI, it's fairly simple. Like most smartwatches, you can still long hold to customize what the watch will look like. And there are a nice handful of watch faces included by default, some of these which are animated and should be nice enough for kids to use, including a Halloween theme, various holidays. There's also a couple of more digital styles that you can change between 24 and 12-hour formats, also for various seasons and holidays that you can pick between, showing off the vibrancy of the display, even though it's not an OLED display, so contrast isn't going to be as inky dark. Again, for a kid's smartwatch, I think it's still doing a reasonable job. You can also swipe down to access another panel of additional watch dials, so the list is really quite comprehensive. Here's an example of one of the animated options, which is dancing along here on the right. Here's another Halloween-themed one with ghosts that are moving in the background, and one of fall, which is also slowly moving with the trees. So these animations definitely add a touch of character and personalization. We can also swipe down to access the quick notification shade, taking a look at the battery percentage remaining. You can also jump into some quick shortcuts, including settings, and also change properties like the sound for the aforementioned built-in speaker when you're having calls can also be customized. Brightness of the display you can also manually toggle, so this is the brightest that the screen will get, but also consume a little bit more power. And then under personalization, you can also choose between a light versus a dark theme. It can still look quite good if you are in nighttime environments. You don't want to have quite as bright of a display, for instance. You can also quickly jump into the camera, tapping on the icon over here just for instantly snapping something using that lens. Not the highest resolution, but again, will work in a pinch. You can also jump into the music player to store up to 1,500 songs, really without any problems, using the loudspeaker or Bluetooth if you're paired to wireless headphones to play that back. No issues in terms of generally navigating around, and the screen is also slightly recessed, offering a little protection if you accidentally knock it against the wall, for example. Swiping down shows you any notifications, and then going to the left is where we can access the quick fitness activities, including how many steps we've taken during the day, as well as past measurements. Like most smartwatches, this is relatively well performing in terms of accuracy, and in my testing so far, it was comparable to a Amazfit in terms of being just about 10 or 20 steps off from each other. Swiping over to the right will bring up the full list of applications, and this is really basic purposefully since the intended demographic is for children or the elderly, so all the buttons are a lot larger, and you don't get access to the full marketplace or Google Play Store for downloading additional apps, for instance. Everything is baked on in, but the core functions, including different contacts that you're able to program, calling people more easily, as well as sending messages. So if we take a quick look at this as an example, I have the companion app on the phone over there, and I'm able to send a reply tapping on the 3 buttons using either sending a photograph with the camera. I can also send a voice memo or a emoji. In fact, you don't get access to, say, a dedicated QWERTY keyboard for typing things out. There's a few presets like hi, hello, why, but you aren't able to add additional options since the screen is so small. I'm going to send a quick voice memo, hello world, and you can record up to 30 seconds, release, as you can see there, and it will be able to be sent. I can play it back just by tapping. Send a quick voice memo, hello, you can record up, and it comes out from that bottom speaker. Not the best sounding in the world, but is audible enough. Then over on the companion app, you'll be able to see if there's messages coming in, as well as alerts, such as the watch's battery is running low, if they've exited a safety region in terms of location, as well as if the watch has been manually shut down. And we're also able to reply back to the watch. Here, we do have access to a full QWERTY keyboard, like on most text messaging devices, so you aren't limited by just presets on the companion app. And once that is sent over, you heard the alert on the watch. It's actually quite responsive, using cellular or Wi-Fi if you are indoors. Really, aside from that, there's just alarms and a simple timer, core watch functions that we tend to see on other smart wearables as well. So from the app, you're also able to call the watch very quickly here, and just by tapping there, we can see it start to ring here on the watch just a moment later, including support for video calls as well, using the, of course, selfie cam on your phone, and the other cam will be on the watch, which also works quite well, keeping in mind it does consume a little bit more data. Otherwise, in terms of functions that we can track from the app, we do have the pedometer. You also see a battery percentage on the watch, as well as an estimated location of where the watch is, which, by the way, also gets sent to you as an alert when the watch is turned off in terms of the last known location, which is also quite a useful feature. The final settings tab allows you to set up additional contacts for calling, as well as safe zones. That can be a house or a school, and say that safe zone has been exited, you'll be also able to receive an alert automatically, preventing it from being shut down manually, that you can also turn on or off here, including a tilt to wake function for the screen. And if you also want to receive heart rate notifications, if the wearer's heart rate exceeds a certain number, you'll also receive an alert on here as well. So that is more or less it as far as our quick hands-on review of the Oaxis myFirst Phone. This has been the R1s, and as aforementioned, I think it's a fairly well-performing, simple-to-use, wrist-based watch that can be for kids, for the elderly, looking for something really simple just for voice, as well as some occasional video communications. The bundled 3 to 6 months of free service I think is also a pretty neat deal. With that being said, I would like them to perhaps consider in the future maybe a slightly more light operating system as a alternative to Android, just because the functionality will be restricted anyways, and they might be able to extend the battery life. But for the basics, I think this is actually doing quite well and serves as a nice competitor to some of the other wrist-bound wearables we've seen. You can check out additional details if interested in links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the Oaxis myFirst Fone R1s.